Ted Danson reteams with Good Place creator Michael Schur for a new Netflix comedy, and he may break a TV record in the process. Let's talk about A Man on the Inside. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my TV review for the new Netflix series, A Man on the Inside. This is streaming all 8 episodes right now for season 1, and it leaves it open-ended for a season 2 if they wish to do that, so we'll see about that. But the record I mentioned up front, Ted Danson, this is his 13th TV series with a recurring or regular series role, and that breaks, or at least ties, depending on who you ask, a record from Robert Urich, who was on a lot of one-season shows in his life. He is now passed, but he was in Spencer for Hire, SWAT, mostly 70s, 80s, and 90s kind of stuff, but since Cheers in the 80s, Ted Danson has appeared in Becker and a couple of different CSIs and Damages and a big recurring role on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He did over 40 episodes of that show, as well as, a few maybe that didn't last, like recently Mr. Mayor. But, of course, The Good Place was one of his huge recent successes, and he reteams here with the creator of that show, Michael Schur, who also co-created Parks and Rec. And he was a writer on The Office, and he actually played Mo Schrute on The Office. So if you're an Office fan, you will definitely know him, at least to see him. But this is based on a documentary film that was Oscar nominated a few years ago called The Mole Agent. So before we get any further here into talking about this show, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are one of my subscribers already, thank you so much for that. Always love having you guys return. But if you're not, please consider subscribing, click that notification bell, or just like this video, comment below. All that stuff, of course, helps the channel out, and I certainly do appreciate it. So The Mole Agent was a great movie. It did not win Best Documentary Feature, but really, really good stuff. And you can see that on Netflix as well. I'm not sure if that was part of the reason this is on Netflix, kind of that synergy. But whatever the case may be, I don't know if it was a Netflix original or if they bought it after the fact. But point being, this is sort of loosely based on the concept of that. The concept of that movie was that a man was thinking his mother was being abused in this nursing home, so he hired a detective agency to find out what was going on, and they hired, then in turn, an elderly man to sort of go undercover as a spy and kind of infiltrate that place and get to know some of the people there and what have you, and find out what's going on. And so this show kind of takes that concept and runs with it. It's different characters, and they're giving people different backstories and everything, but that's sort of the generic or the general seed that brought this show to life. So Ted Danson plays Charles, who is a recent widower. He lost his wife to complications from dementia. And he was also an engineering college professor. He's retired there as well. But he takes a job as an investigative assistant for this private detective agency, who is run by Lila Rich Creek Estrada, who plays Julie. She is the main investigator that essentially hires him. But Charles has been, sort of a little bit aimless since his wife passed, and his daughter, who is played by Mary Elizabeth Ellis, who you may know as the waitress from Always Sunny. She's done some other things as well, but that's sort of probably what she's best known for. But she plays his daughter, and she's basically telling him, hey, you gotta, find something to do with your days. You seem lonely. And the two of them are not necessarily estranged, but they live a couple hours away. And, she's got 3 kids of her own, all teenage boys. And so she's kind of got her hands full already. And he spends a lot of his time clipping out newspaper articles and sending them to her. And she's like, Dad, I don't know what you want me to do with this, but you got to find a hobby, get something going on. So he sees this ad looking for a man over the age of 75 that's good with technology, and so he gets his foot in the door there and ends up becoming, kind of a beloved part of this retirement home. And the gal running the retirement home is played by Stephanie Beatrice from another of the great sitcoms of the last 10 or 15 years. We've talked about Parks and Rec and The Good Place. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Stephanie Beatrice was on that. Rosa Diaz, I believe. And she plays Dee Dee here, who is the managing director of the retirement community. So There's a few other people you may recognize in recurring roles, but I'll let them be a surprise to you. So, in any event, well, let's kind of talk about the show on the whole because that's sort of the basic premise. It does end up being a comedy mystery of sorts. Obviously, that's kind of all the rage. At least for streaming shows, nice easy binge watching. Things like Only Murders in the Building kind of kick down the door for that kind of blending the well, in that case a murder mystery. Here it's just some stolen items, but there is certainly a comedy mystery element to this show. But there's a lot more at play than that. And I will say it's odd because the Steve Martin character in Only Murders is also named Charles. So I don't know if naming the Ted Danson character Charles is sort of a nod to that or not. But look, one of the things that Michael Schur excels at, and I've been rewatching The Good Place. I'm actually almost to the finale. I'm like halfway through season 4. The Good Place is where him and Ted Danson first kind of connected, but even in his work writing and co-creating Parks and Recreation before that, there's a sweetness to Michael Schur's characters, his writing, even kind of the premises. And I think for a long time in television comedy, it was sort of funny to punch down, insult people, heavy one-liners, that kind of thing. And look, there was obviously, many shows have had success with that. Roseanne, Married with Children, Family Guy, whatever. But there's a reason I think that shows like Parks and Rec and Ted Lasso, even, which Michael Schur had nothing to do with, but that's another example of a show where there's a lot of heart there. And these characters are not just sort of one note. Even in these 8 episodes of A Man on the Inside, a lot of the characters are fairly layered. Now if we got more time with them, I think they would be even more so. But while this is, a mystery, it's certainly, got comedic elements. You can call it a comedy, but really it is so much more than that. It takes really deep looks into things like growing old, loneliness, family issues. He's, like I said, sort of him and his daughter not really communicating very well, not talking much, and her finding out that he's a part of this, oddly brings them sort of closer together, and they have some conversations about where they are in their relationship, as father and daughter. So there's a lot of things at play here. And look, we see that certainly in The Good Place. There's a lot of things there about, theology and religion and a lot of sort of more heady things than you would expect from a comedy. But even Parks and Rec kind of dabbled in that a little bit. Government as a whole, and the effect of positivity and things like that weren't maybe commonplace when Parks and Rec was on the air, and now people have turned a little bit more into thinking, yeah, there's nothing wrong with some positivity. That's why Ted Lasso is such a success, and Abbott Elementary and things like that. So, listen, this has all of those kind of things that I personally love with a Michael Schur program. I mean, there's a reason The Good Place and Parks and Rec are both always talked about as, 2 of the best comedies of the last 10, 15, 20 years. And it's because they're all sort of a lot deeper than, okay, this is the premise. Oh, it's a mystery and he's looking for this. Okay, but there's a lot going on here, even in just these 8 episodes that we get. So I do have a couple of minor criticisms. One would be that the mystery itself isn't all that engaging. It's interesting enough, I suppose, but when you compare it to something like Only Murders in the Building, certainly the stakes maybe aren't as high, but it does deal with certain things like abuse in nursing homes. The documentary, I think The Mole Agent dealt a little better with that, because this is about stolen property, but still, it does call into question some of those things. And the other thing I would say is perhaps the scenes with his daughter are well done as they are, but I don't think there's enough of them. In fact, I think we only see her kids in 2 of the 8 episodes. So, to really bring her and her family a little more into it, I think might have done well. But look, this is easily one of the best shows so far this year, certainly on the comedy standpoint. Absolutely. And they do leave it open ended for a second season. So we could see more with, Charles maybe going undercover somewhere else or what have you. So that's nice. Netflix hopefully getting the response they want. It's currently sitting at number one as of this recording on their top 10 TV shows list. So, but I believe A Man on the Inside with an A minus. And I didn't even talk about how always watchable Ted Danson is. He's so likable, so charming, and that certainly carries over with this character. You can see why everybody at the facility just fell in love with him. So, all right, anyway, that will do it. You can check out all 8 episodes of this on Netflix. Thanks for watching. Dan reviews it, and I'll see you next time.